Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On-Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on-demand care for common ailments, such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org.
Hi, I'm Charlie Hunt.
And I'm Jackie Kettler. We're both political scientists who also love to gossip about political scandals.
In Season 1 of Scandalized, we told the stories of some of our favorite scandals from across American history.
While we work on Season 2, we're dropping 5 brand new bite-sized episodes to whet your appetite.
Listen to new episodes of Scandalized starting Monday, September 29th at boisestatepublicradio.org or wherever you get your podcasts.
From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Samantha Wright, filling in for Jim Gaudette, and this is Idaho Matters. When we've got weeds in the backyard, like cheatgrass, many of us turn to herbicides or maybe just some back-breaking hand weeding. So what happens when you have 166 acres of sagebrush steppe, home to silver-haired bats, western toads, wintering mule deer, maybe even a few moose, and cheatgrass moves in to try to destroy the natural ecosystem? Chemicals aren't the answer, and the area is too steep and hard to reach for manual removal, so call in the goats. They can go anywhere and eat almost anything, including weeds like cheatgrass. And that's exactly what the Sagebrush Steppe Land Trust did for their Century Heights Preserve in Bannock County. It's part of a pilot program to try out goat grazing on the landscape. Eric Pankow joins us now. He's the Sagebrush Steppe Stewardship Manager, along with Zachary Copeland with Idaho Goat Grazers. Hi, thanks for both of you for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Samantha. Thanks for having me.
Eric, let's talk about the problem. What is Century Heights Reserve and where is it?
Yeah, great question. So Century Heights is a 266-acre wildlife preserve. It's a property that is owned and operated by Sagebrush Steppe Land Trust. It's actually in the city limits of Pocatello, which is pretty unique for a wildlife preserve of that size. And it's a property that we primarily manage for mule deer winter range. It's they use this area on this side of the east side of the bench here in the valley is kind of defined as their critical winter habitat. And so we primarily focus on that for our management, but we also use the property with kind of a multiple use perspective where we allow limited public access motorized for people to.
Oh, I think we lost Eric. Okay, Zach, you're up. Tell me about Idaho Goat Grazers. Who are you, and how did you get started with goats?
Well, as you stated, my name is Zachary Copeland. I'm based in Aberdeen, Idaho. I'm the owner of Idaho Goat Grazers. We kind of got started, into the goats just kind of on our own personal use thing around our area, and through social media and talking to one of my buddies, we discovered across the other parts of the country that people are using goats for various types of vegetation management, and that's kind of how we got into it. We started advertising and it just took off from there.
And how many goats do you have?
Currently we have around 200 of our own, but we have a couple partnerships to where we can access, upwards of 1,000 if we need to.
Wow, 1,000 goats. That's got to be pretty effective. Eric, I think we've got you back. Can you describe Century Heights for us? What's it look like? What's the landscape like out there?
Yeah, my apologies. Part of the issue with Matt on the property today is spotty cell phone service. But yeah, Century Heights Preserve, it's on the East Bench in Pocatello. It's pretty steep terrain. It is what I would call quintessential sagebrush steppe habitat. It's a lot of sagebrush, a lot of different annual and perennial grasses, polka dotted with some pretty significant juniper stands. The type of habitat mule deer and other species on the steppe just love.
And you've got cheatgrass along with all of that beautiful other plant life. How big is the problem up there?
Absolutely. So it is kind of the scourge of the West, and we're not immune here. This property was historically a sheep grazing allotment, and then it's had successive years of range fires that have kind of degraded the native plant life. And a lot of the area that gets a lot of sun exposure is dominated by cheatgrass, and it is an issue. We've definitely identified that it is a limiting factor for native plants we would love to see, like sagebrush, bitterbrush, rabbitbrush, from succeeding. So that's kind of the premise of the issue here.
So you called up Zach and said, "Hey, how about bringing your goats out, and we'll give it a try and see if it can get rid of the cheatgrass."
Yeah, exactly. We were looking to see if there was a method, a non-herbicide method that we could potentially scale up to access some of the steeper reaches, like you mentioned, and knock back some of that cheatgrass to reduce some of that competition. And we're hoping we get a good response from some of the native plants. And we've also identified, and others that have used this method, that it's a great fuel reduction method too. So wildfires have caused a lot of this issue, and so we're trying to see if we can maybe temper some of those by taking some of those flashy fuels off the landscape.
Gotcha. And okay, Zach, so you get the call, and whether it's from the trust or anybody, and they say, "Hey, we need you to come out with the goats and get rid of the weeds." So, what's the first step? You got to get the goats out there, and then how do you fence in the goats in places like this?
Well, the first step for me, once somebody calls and kind of lets me know and goes over with me what they have and what their issue is, I always go see the place in person. I won't just ever show up with goats without going and checking the place out and making sure it's something that's going to be safe and effective. Um, and then to answer your question on the fence, which is a really good question, we get asked this quite a bit. We get people that'll call and say, "Hey, you probably can't come to my place because it's not fenced," but it's quite the contrary. We use a portable electric net fence, which is built by Kenco Fence Supplies, and it is pretty universal. We can adapt to any shape, size, pretty much whatever we need to do with it.
Wow, and that keeps the goats where they need to be instead of, wandering off and eating somebody's primroses, right?
Yes, it keeps them in, and then it also helps, at places like the Sagebrush Steppe Land Trust up there. It helps us be able to limit the predator control too, help control them a little bit, keeps them out.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think of that. Okay, so and goats eat the cheatgrass? Do they like cheatgrass?
They really like it in the spring when it's nice and green, and it's really something that, I mean, even in the fall, when it's a little dried up, they just tend to enjoy it.
And I heard there are some steep slopes in this area and they're kind of hard for people to get to do things like hand weeding. So how did the goats do on the slopes? Were they up on the slopes at all?
We really didn't graze anything too steep. There's probably one section in our trial that we've done so far that was a pretty good hillside that I mean, it would be a lot of human labor to try to do anything else on those hillsides like that.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. And Eric, I heard they took out the goats, some Russian olive trees along with the cheatgrass, which is also invasive. Um, can you describe how the goats took them out?
Yeah, it was fun to watch. There's a few old trees up there that some smaller ones that they're not really causing an issue, but they are invasive. In wetland areas, around southeast Idaho. But it was fun to watch the goats literally climb those trees, trying to get every leaf on the branch and just kind of collapse the tree itself and just drop it to the ground. They're impressive creatures.
They are. Eric, you mentioned mule deer. We talked about mule deer at the beginning. They use this place in the winter. Why is it important to get rid of the cheatgrass for the deer?
Yeah, so cheatgrass, kind of by virtue of its name, it really doesn't provide a lot of good forage. It doesn't really give most animals what they really need. So it's not an ideal species. It's provides something, but it is not compared to native and some of the even non-native bunch grasses we'd like to see. This area, anybody that's familiar with Pocatello, knows the valley floor is pretty well developed, and we have a freeway and train tracks that kind of intersect our valley floor. And so these upper hillsides above, kind of city proper are just so important for those mule deer that, they come out of the high country and they really need somewhere they can spend the winter that isn't just really deep snow, has some food availability. And historically, they've been utilizing properties like this that are flush with things like sagebrush. And when it's nothing but cheatgrass, it really reduces the food component as well as their shelter habitat as well. And so having that robust brush component is really, really important to species like mule deer.
I know you've talked in the past on other places about juniper trees and thermal refuge and how important it is for animals like deer and others to have that in the winter. Zach, can we talk a little bit about the goats and how quickly they can do their thing? I saw a couple of videos online on your TikTok about where you bring goats into a backyard and how quickly they can just mow everything to the ground. How does that work?
Well, typically on our backyard jobs like that, we try to bring, we go and look at the job and assess kind of the size of it. And we try to bring the amount of goats to where we could wipe that backyard out in one day, just so we're not, it makes it more cost effective for us and for the customer also. And so typically we roll into a backyard with anywhere 40 to 80 goats and knock them out that way.
Did I read that most of the seeds that a goat eats will die in its stomach, and that means it won't spread those seeds somewhere else?
Yeah, so if you're grazing with, say, cattle or sheep, they're gonna consume the seed, and when they do what animals do, they're gonna spread that seed. And goats, in the process of them chewing their cud and the way that they ruminate, there's studies out there that are claiming that they're killing 90 to 95% of the seed that they consume.
Wow, that's amazing. How popular is goat grazing now? How often are you out and about with your goats?
Well, it's been something that the last 2 years, have done full time through the summer. And I think a lot of it has just been doing stuff like this, radio shows and television and news and social media, of course, to just get the word out there that it's even an option when people think of, we got this weed problem here. They don't think instantly of goats, and we're trying to change that. We want to be the first thing they think of.
Well, they're certainly cute. We've got some pictures that we're going to put on our website of your goats and some of the landscape. So I'm looking forward to that. Eric, I understand the reserve is closed right now. Why do you close it over the winter?
Yeah, really good question. It all goes back to mule deer. This is when they start moving in and spending a lot of time on the property. And we do welcome the public, like I said, but we really try and discourage use in the winter months where they are limited on food. They're really just trying to hunker down. And we really just don't want people, especially bringing dogs out, pushing them off because that's not serving them. So we do seasonally close the property from late October until April, and then that's when they'll generally move off to the high country.
And can you tell us a little bit more about the Sagebrush Steppe Land Trust and what you do?
Yeah, so we are an accredited land trust. We're a 501c3 nonprofit in Southeast Idaho. Our primary focus is on land protection and conservation initiatives. We do that through a few means, primarily by implementing conservation easements with private landowners. We do own and operate several of our own properties that typically function like this one as a wildlife preserve. We also focus on community conservation initiatives, so working with our local communities to get volunteers out, to educate, to work with kids. Is what we were doing today, was having a high school group out, helping us plant sagebrush and bitterbrush. And
That is awesome. I love that. That is so great. Zach, are you going to be doing this again? Will you be out on the Sagebrush Steppe, helping out the land trust in the future, hopefully, if they call you?
Yes, that's part of the plan. I mean, we did a spring study and a fall study this year, and so we're really optimistic about what we're going to see come springtime. And hopefully, we are able to graze a whole different section in the spring and not have to worry about the one we already did. Hopefully, we've eradicated enough of the cheatgrass off the sections that we started to be able to move on and continue to try to clean up throughout the place.
Eric, would you say this was a practical solution? Will you use goats again?
absolutely, anything that's an alternative to herbicide, I think, is positive. We're still exploring the scale. I'm hoping we can try some different areas and work on maybe even different weeds. But I think it is a very practical solution, and we're learning where we can best use it.
Well, this has been great. I want to thank you both. We have been speaking with Eric Pankow with the Sagebrush Steppe Land Trust. He's the stewardship manager, with Zachary Copeland with Idaho Goat Grazers. And we've been talking about a project to get rid of cheatgrass in the Century Heights Preserve in eastern Idaho. Like I said, we're going to put some pictures of the preserve and the goats who are hard at work on our website. Just go to boisestatepublicradio.org.
You've been listening to Idaho Matters from Boise State Public Radio. I'm Gemma Gaudette.
Stay connected with Boise State Public Radio on Instagram. From breaking news and local stories to behind-the-scenes videos, it's where our community comes together. Follow Boise State Public Radio today.